Welcome everybody to today's sit down. I have never been as excited as I am today to do the introduction for the young man next to us. I'm going to get into his formal CV and then we'll pick it up from there. But wow, I'm in awe of his presence. He's been so kind to everybody from the moment that he walked in. He is one of the most humble people that I've ever met, and I would like to share some of his history and his achievements. The young man in our studio today has a Master of Law, LLM degree in International Investment and Trade Law from the University of Stellenbosch, and was elected to the Tshwane Council in 2016, chosen to serve as the member of the Mayoral Committee MMC for Economic Development and Spatial Planning, and the leader of executive business under Solly Msimanga. In his position as MMC, he played a key role in driving investment projects into the city through chairing the Strategic Investment Committee. One such project was the Ford expansion project in Silverton, which has been unveiled as a special economic zone. Before joining the City of Tshwane, he served as the Chief Director of International Trade and Economic Development in the Department of Trade and Industry. He has acquired excellent skills at executive and senior management level in management of large organizations, thanks to experience as MMC for Economic Development and Spatial Planning, Chairman of the Municipal Appeals Tribunal, and as Chief Director. This is a complement by the programmed management skill and the experience he accumulated as a Director of International Investment and Trade, as well as from legal practice. His leadership and management skills were further developed as Chief Negotiator for International Investment Agreements and led negotiations for international trade issues, where he interacted at very high level with ministers and deputy ministers, including negotiating bilateral investment treaties. He also is an ex-soldier, having previously served as a paratrooper for the French Foreign Legion. He joined the Legion with the intention of coming back to South Africa to fight the apartheid regime. It is my honor and absolute privilege to introduce Mr. Randall Williams, our current Executive Mayor of the City of Tshwane, our beautiful capital of our beautiful country, South Africa. Wow, sir. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview with us, and welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Now, I want to always kick off our interview and go into my favorite question, and if it was at all possible that we could, boom, magically snap our fingers and the 17-year-old version of this amazing man could walk into the studio, have a seat here next to us on the couch, and if we could pick that 17-year-old version's brain and ask him, at 17, what were your priorities? What was very important to you? And what were you thinking about?
Well, the number one thing I was thinking about at the time was politics. When I was 17 years old, I was in Standard 9 at a school called Bridgetown High, which is next to a well-known place on the Cape Flats called Athlone. So that's where I grew up. When I went through primary school, I found school very easy. I would normally come first, sometimes second in class. By the time I got to high school, I was merely cruising.
Okay.
And I concentrated more on sport. So I became a local sports star.
Okay.
I was doing, in fact, at the age of 17, I started playing semi-professional football in Cape Town. There was, between amateur and professional, there was a league called the Super League.
Okay.
So I played in the Super League.
And you shocked me with the position that you played.
Yeah,
Please share, sir.
Yeah, goalkeeper at the time. And,
wow.
And also I was involved in other sports like athletics. I was a very good sprinter. So I used to partake in different forms of sport.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
but the ambition of politics was always in the back of the mind. So you always intended to go into politics, or did that come later on in life, sir?
No, I didn't necessarily want to go into politics. Everybody was politically aware at the time because, 17 years old, that was 1978, 2 years after the 1976 riots.
Yes.
And the political activism continued on the Cape Flats. And I was consumed by that. It became a very, very important part of my life. So I didn't exactly think of, I'm going to matriculate next year and then I'm going to go into the following direction, study to become an attorney or whatever. That was the furthest thing from my mind.
So that's thank you very much for that answer, sir, because that gives the confidence, to all of us, and the young 17-year-old people that are watching this, that even yourself, the current mayor, didn't have the sequence, mapped out to the T, and we as young people we can just relax a little bit and not put so much pressure that at 18 this is what I'm going to be, at 19 it wasn't sequenced that way. So if I may, you matriculate. How does your political career begin? How does that political river, pull you in and start shaping you and forming you? How does that happen? Do you one day decide this is what I want to do, or I'm always fascinated to ask that question.
Look, after I matriculated, I did what most people in politics did. When you went to university, you would register for law. Everybody that was involved in politics mostly were registered for law. So I registered, but I wasn't really interested in studying law.
Really?
Yeah, no, I wasn't interested. And I was just floating around from political meeting to political meeting. And then eventually when it got to 1986, I then decided, look, I need to do something where I can say I'm going to make a contribution to this country changing. And that was actually the time, 86 was the time of the Swart Gevaar policy. That's when I made up my mind I was going to join Umkhonto weSizwe, but I then decided to take another route. And the route was that I decided to join the French Foreign Legion because I heard they were a good fighting force, and particularly I wanted to join the paratroopers. So one day, I think it was a Friday evening, I can still remember, I left and I landed in Paris and I spent the whole day, it was a Saturday, looking where to join up with the French Foreign Legion. Finally, late Saturday afternoon, I managed to find a recruitment place.
So you went over blind?
Well, I read about it. I knew that they were recruiting people, that you have to go through selection and all that. And just, I didn't quite have the address of a recruitment office, but I knew there was a recruitment place somewhere in Paris.
I know you're very humble and you're downplaying this, but I want to repeat in my words what you just said for the people that maybe missed it and went over their head. Finally, it clicked. You said, no, I have to make a contribution. I definitely disagree with this policy. This is where my road starts to make a contribution. I know they're recruiting, but there is a process. I'm going there. Land in a different country. Could you speak French at the time?
No, not a word.
Did you know where you were?
Well,
in France, different planet compared to what you were used to growing up.
I was hoping they put me on the right plane.
On the right plane. You land there, and the whole Saturday you spend your time, floating around and looking at where do I actually go and get recruited.
Wow. Yeah, I heard. When I read on the information, they stated there was a recruitment office at a place called Fort de Nogent, which I had no idea where it was, in which suburb, which they call banlieue, in which suburb it was located. So I just went around in my accent, tried to pronounce Fort de Nogent, and most probably the French people couldn't understand what I was saying. but eventually someone could speak English,
Okay.
and and
Pointed
was
in the
able
right direction.
point me in the right direction. I had to take 2 different trains to actually get there.
Amazing, sir.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on having that fighting spirit, and I think that part built your character to the man that you were, or the man that you've become. And how long did you spend there? How long were you active?
Well, 6 years. You first do your training in the south of France, a place called Castelnaudary, which is about 60 kilometers from Toulouse.
Okay.
So that's where I did my training. You spend 14 weeks in your basic training, and from your basic training, you then selected to go to different regiments of the French Foreign Legion. And the one regiment I wanted to go to was the paratroopers. Now, first of all, in your platoon, you have 36 people, and you have to finish in the top 10 in order to volunteer again for the for the paratroopers.
Wow. And you
must
qualified,
finish.
obviously.
Yeah, out of 36, I finished third in my platoon. But well, like I said, I was very sportive. So yeah, so it wasn't a problem.
If you don't mind, what were some of the training regiments? I would love to know. Like, what was really tough at the time?
You spend a lot of times marching up and down mountains,
Okay.
with a lot of weight on your back.
Wow.
Yeah, long marches. The Legion loves long marches.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. But like you said, coming, from a background of being very sporty, that
Yeah.
obviously aided
Yeah,
you
it helped.
in the quest.
Yeah.
But I think that wasn't enough. It was that inner drive and the will to make a
Yes,
difference that
yes.
also aided you.
Yeah.
Beautiful, sir. So, different question. You are the person that you are today, the amazing human being, because of accumulative experiences
Yeah.
and decisions, some right, some you learn from. If you could say, going back to your humble beginnings as a politician, if you could take back one mindset that you say, I wish I had this with me because maybe it could have served me a little bit better in the beginning of my career, what would that be, sir?
Looks for me, it's patience. I like coming in, making a contribution that will have an almost immediate impact. But in politics, and especially when you in public administration, it doesn't quite work that way. Like when you in private sector, you have far more freedom to bring changes into a company. Things can happen a lot more quickly. You have a lot more freedom when you implement your decisions. In the public sector, it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of red tape, lots of hurdles to overcome. Making an immediate impact, it's very, very difficult, because everything in the public service starts with policies. You need to change policies. And especially if you have a workforce that's haven't given 100% commitment in the past, changing that mindset overnight, it's not going to happen. And as a leader, I think when you come into the public service, you have to work very hard at getting people's buy-in, convincing people that doing it the other way is something that will be to the advantage of the residents. The fact that you in fact will be able to improve service delivery. Doing it the old way, you're not delivering the services that residents would expect. So learning patience and not expect that things are going to happen overnight. I think that's very important for a leader coming into a public sector position.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that there's a degree of that statement that applies to the private sector as well, because leading change comes from buy-in, as you mentioned earlier. If you have the buy-in of the majority of the company, you can execute a new strategy or a new procedure or a new process. With us, it's the same. I have to get the buy-in of senior management, then middle management, and then go and present it to the company with their belief. Otherwise, the moment I do it without their buy-in, it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
So patience.
And the other mistake that I think that I tend to do, when I take decisions and I want to implement it, I think how I did it in my personal life, and expect that the other person would react in the same manner. Like I sometimes approach things very logically. For example, when I got back from the foreign region, when I took a decision to come back to South Africa, because in beginning of '93, the ANC representative told me there were going to be elections. There was an agreement. There were going to be elections in South Africa in '94, and he advised me to come back home. And I thought, come back home to what?
Yeah.
I didn't have any qualifications. Before that, twice I was offered officer's commission in the French Foreign Legion, but I decided not to accept officer's commission,
Wow.
but to stay in a combat unit. So I spent my time in a combat unit. But when I came back, I thought very logical about it. I applied everywhere for a job, but I wasn't successful because, look, I had no qualifications. I only had military experience. And then I thought about it very logically. I took an A3 paper, right? Because one thing I had before I come to the A3 paper, one thing I realized right from the start, no matter in what circumstances you find yourself, there's always an asset. If you're unemployed, you have a major asset which employed people don't have. The major asset you have, you've got lots and lots of free time.
Yes.
You can do what you want to with it.
Yes.
An employed person doesn't have that asset.
That's right.
So you can now decide what you want to do with that free time. So I took an A3 paper and I wrote one 3-letter word on that A3 paper, and I pasted it on the wall, and I put a table in front of it, and I started studying towards that objective.
I can't wait anymore. Please tell us what the word was.
The 3-letter word.
Yes.
Job.
Job. Okay.
That's it. So I studied and I registered for law again. I used my free time to study. I worked part-time to support myself, and I did very well at my studies, and I never stopped studying. And from that moment, even when I was working afterwards for the DTI, I still continued studying. So I qualified as an attorney, and I continued with my LL. I did my BProc, became an attorney, did my LLB at the DTI. Also while at the DTI, I did my LLM, and then I registered for my doctorate, my LLD.
Wow.
But then, fortunately or unfortunately, my party then offered me a full-time political position.
Fortunately, sir.
Yeah, well, fortunately,
Yes, sir.
a full-time political position. I would have preferred part-time so I could finish my doctorate, but hopefully I will still finish it.
You will, sir.
Yeah.
I really believe that you will. And it's amazing what you said. Yeah. Everything has context, and
Yeah.
especially today, if you're unemployed and you've got all the time, I believe, I'm going to put a statement, maybe you disagree
Yeah.
with me, sir, but I think the opportunities of you spending your time today more productively than you could when you going back to that time are much greater. I mean, you can literally learn very technical skills
Yeah.
for free. You can learn it for free on the internet, and you weren't afforded that opportunity back then because it didn't exist. And I agree with you, sir. Unemployed people have an asset, which is free time.
Yeah.
How they choose to use it determines where they go going from there.
Yeah, and also, look, when I take decisions, I always think about what is the long-term consequences of this decision. I always take, where am I going to be in 5 years or so, 3, 5, 7 years? I take it in long-term, how can I say, in long-term phases. For example, when I practiced law, I became an attorney. So I practiced in Wynberg in Cape Town, and I was then offered a junior partnership. Instead, I accepted a position at the DTI, which was quite a junior position.
instead of a junior partnership, because
instead of a junior partnership.
I mean, the income gap was
Yeah,
huge, but
yeah.
you knew what your long-term goal was.
Yes.
Wow.
And so the position was what they call assistant trade and industry advisor. It sounds very
It sounds technical and romantic, yes.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an important position, but it was just one level above the cleaners. Yeah, that's so yeah. So
However,
I started at the princely sum of 3,900 rands a month, 3,700 rands a month. I started in '98, and a year and 9 months later, I was promoted 5 levels. I was deputy director. So, and eventually I became chief director. And there's one part which was missing, the fact that I became a member, full-time member of the company's tribunal. And I was on the level of deputy director general when I was at the company's tribunal.
And how old are you at that stage, sir?
Well, I joined the DTI when I was 37 years old. Yeah, so let me see, that time was probably about 52, 53.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, sir. And you're a competitive person. I can just, you know, the playing sport, you know, you come top 10, you came number 3 at the French Foreign Legion. So I can feel that competitor inside you. If I'm to ask you, it takes a village to raise a man. It takes, you know, the African continent and you know the European continent to raise a great man like you. If you were to say, I'm sure there's more than 3, but the first 3 that come to mind, who are the people in your life that made an impact and helped you course correct and guided you along your journey to where you are today?
Look, I would say my mother gave me stability in life because she had to unfortunately undergo huge challenges, and I had to grow up very quickly. From sub A, I had to look after myself. My brother was a year and a half, he is a year and a half older than me, and we had to take ourselves to school. Like, she had to leave early in the morning, we had to get dressed at 7 o'clock and so forth. Unfortunately, she had to be the rock of the family because my father suffered from 2 ills. He was an alcoholic and he was a compulsive gambler. Not a very good combination. Not a very good combination. So a lot of times my mother was the one that gave stability to the family. She was working all her life. She started working at the age of 14, and she only retired, so to speak, at the age of 69, but only because the company went bankrupt. That's when she stopped working. So she worked very long hours. She used to take the 10 to 5 bus in the morning, and she would come home at 6, 7 at night. So we grew up very, very quickly, where we had to look after ourselves and become mature at a very, very early age.
And I can pick up that's where the will to win and the absolute, no matter what comes ahead, I'm going to overcome. I can pick up that's your foundation. That's where that's and she led by example.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's the first person. Who else, sir?
Well, yeah, I suppose there are people that have done great things, that took chances in life. Well, obviously, Mandela has gone through a lot of suffering, and obviously what I admire about him is that despite the suffering that he has gone through, he didn't come out of that prison with vengeance in his heart. Instead, he rather wanted to build up a country. So I quite admire that, you know, that you don't put yourself first, you put the interests of others first. So for me, that is an important impact on my life. And it also highlights the faults that I sometimes find in myself, that I'm very impatient, like I said before, very impatient, because sometimes I think, yeah, but if I could do it, why can't you do it? You
Yes.
know, that type of approach. So you have to learn patience. Above all, you need to have empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah, for people, and it's as someone once explained to me, empathy is not the same as sympathy. It's something much more deeper, much more understanding about the person's circumstances, and really feeling what that person is feeling. So yeah, so I would say definitely Madiba will
Did,
fill that role.
did you have an opportunity to interact with him?
No,
No,
unfortunately
not.
not. Unfortunately not. Yeah, he was a very busy man,
Yes, sir.
and when he was president, I was down in Cape Town, yeah, studying at the time, and yeah, so it's a pity I never engaged with him. And then, yeah, I admire people that build something from nothing. You know, so not a specific person, but several people I've met over the years. Even our biggest generic company, pharmaceutical generic company,
Yes.
I forget the name now, slips my mind. Um, I actually met the owner
Wow.
in '99 when he was still starting out. Saad, his surname is Saad. Um, he just few years before that, he started his business in his garage,
Wow.
and and at that time when I met him, he just got funding from the DTI to set up a factory, and look where the company is
Amazing.
today. It's a multinational company.
Employing thousands and
Yeah,
thousands of
thousands
people.
of people. So yeah, Stephen Saad, I think is his name. Yeah, so I admire people that achieve that, that can build something out of nothing.
And I pick up all three characteristics, sir. I pick up
Yeah,
the very strong values and principles, and the very hard work ethic that mom gave, the deep understanding of people and empathy that that we all learned from Mandela, and that founder's mentality of let's go out there and make a difference, and let's build something from
yeah,
nothing. I love it, sir. Thank you.
yeah,
That's beautiful. Um, Next question I would like to ask you is, a very successful person achieves that level because they make mistakes and they learn from those mistakes. And the next time around that opportunity comes up, they are better equipped and better prepared mentally to face those mistakes. I call them landmines. And if you don't mind
yeah,
sharing one or two that you say, by doing this, I potentially, set myself back a little bit. And what we like to do is we like to give the GPS coordinates of those
yeah,
landmines so that we can avoid them. And perhaps somebody looking to go into politics can, shorten their career path by maybe going from 10 years to 6 years, or
yeah,
from 5 years to 3 years. Perhaps some of your experiences.
yeah. Well, you know, that's actually a difficult question to answer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Look, the only thing that I can answer in that regard is when I lead, for example, where we have 7 regions, where I pulled in all the regional heads, and I had a top-down approach because I've informed myself of what all the problems are in the regions, because we also engage with the residents, and I then already have views on how I want to resolve the problems, the challenges that arise in the service delivery in the different regions, whether it's fixing street lights, filling potholes, cutting grass. So I tend to already come there having thought about the challenges, having thought about different solutions, and then I then say this is the direction we want to go. So very instructive on how we should, what solutions we should impose and how we should go about doing it. But what I find now that doing that, those solutions are not lasting. Because the moment you take your eye off the ball, the officials do what they want to do. They don't continue with your solution.
Got you.
Yeah, so instead of having a top-down approach, rather set out what the challenges are and ask them, what do you propose as solutions? You know, so that it becomes their solutions. So there's no question of me coming with solutions. Now I need to get their buy-in, which you often don't.
Yes,
You
agreed.
don't get their buy-in. So let the solutions come from them. They already own the solutions. It's their solutions. Maybe it will be longer lasting. You know, they'll be supervising their own solutions instead of me being around all the time and supervising my solutions. So there, I think I would approach it differently.
I love your feedback, sir, because if the solution comes from me,
Yeah.
I will drive it harder because there's almost a chip on my shoulder. I came up with a solution and I'm going to see it through, rather than you saying, this is the direction that we're going. And perhaps I don't agree totally with the direction. I want to go this way. But because you are imposing that point, I think that's evergreen for any industry, not only politics.
Yes.
That's especially true in business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. If you could spend an entire day with anybody, dead or alive, who would that person be and what would you ask them? I want to see if you go politics or if you go somewhere else. It's an interesting question, sir.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I would like to spend a day with Elon Musk.
Wow.
And find out his thinking. Because often, well, the question I would ask him, are you really doing it to benefit mankind, or are you rent seeking? Are you doing it because you think you'll earn more profit by doing that?
That's a very good question, sir. I suppose we'll never know until we ask him, because I feel at the level that he's reached, perhaps if it was only for pure profit, that's my point of view. I'm by no means going to try and answer that question, but I feel that, you know, his happiness can't be bought with money, and he's at that level. I guess it's not for money anymore. He really wants to make a difference, because if it was for money, it would have been achieved a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I would question then why he's undertaking certain programs. Well, I'm interested to find, first of all, how he manages his time in running all the different businesses.
Wow.
That intrigues me. But why do you want to go and colonize Mars? What benefit do you think there is? In the world, we've got a massive pressing problem. You see hunger all over Ethiopia, Somalia, other countries in the Middle East, so forth, going hungry. For me, that is a real problem, that if you can solve it, you know, you'll be able to bring benefit to the human race. You know, while we have all these people starving, right? You have agricultural systems, for example, in the US, where if they produce too much wheat that the market has no demand for, they destroy it.
Wow.
They destroy it, yes.
I did not know that.
Because the cost of storing it is too high. So it's cheaper for them to burn the wheat than to store it.
Unreal.
Yes.
Well, we have so much hunger.
Yes, so much hunger. So if I had a brilliant mind like Elon Musk, I think that is a more pressing and worthy problem to find a solution for than having to colonize Mars. That's why I ask, what is the human, what is the motive for him wanting to do that? Is it profit seeking, or is it for him to benefit mankind or humankind? I think solving the problem of starvation that's happening right now, I think that has more merit. But of course, it's his money.
Yes.
He can spend his money the way he wants to.
But that's a very nice opposing opinion, because how would he answer that? That's a very good question, sir. Wow. I wasn't aware. It makes, I'm still processing. You know, when you buffer, when your internet's slow, it's happening with me right now. I still can't process the fact that it's actually cheaper for them to destroy the wheat than to store it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if he applies, you know, he himself and his team, they will be able to figure out, you know, how do we move that to where it's actually required right now to solve a massive problem.
Yeah.
Wow. What is the best advice that you've ever received that, you know, sometimes advice lands like snow, softly, and sometimes it just lands like a train, boom. What is the best advice that you've ever received, and you can give us perhaps, you know, that when you heard it, you're like, that makes sense, I'm going to adapt my way of thinking to that?
Look, I won't be able to answer you about a specific topic that I receive advice on, but I can refer to certain circumstances. For example, never take a decision when you have a lot of emotion invested in it. So there's sometimes when things are done against you, you know, and you feel really aggrieved, and you just want to lash out. So you decide, because you want to lash out, you will take a certain decision. And the best advice that someone gave me was, look, just hang on with the decision. Cool down. Take time, think about it, and then after you've cooled down, take a decision. For me, that is the best. Don't take a decision when you feel emotional about something and you want to lash out. Invariably, you're going to end up taking the wrong decision.
Yeah. We're actually on that point. So we did training recently where there's a deep psychological dive into that.
Yeah.
And what we learned there is, in 90 seconds, you process the issue, and your emotion is at its peak for the first 90 seconds after somebody, you know, has either offended you or has a very strong opposing opinion. After 90 seconds, your ego answers.
Yes.
So the emotion doesn't reduce to normal levels. It's now the ego taking a decision, and it's normally wrong. You're so right. That's very good advice. So we learned in the training that at least the first 90 seconds, what you should be doing is gathering information.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll share a way that I applied that mindset that you just shared with us. We had a vehicle stolen out of, you know, next to one of the dealerships, and it's the second time that a vehicle was stolen in that spot. You know, pre-training, it's emotional. Oh, you know, what are we going to do now? After that training, 90 seconds, I know, okay, have we notified our insurance company? Yes. Have we notified the tracking system? Is there a tracker? Yes. Okay, what else can we do to manage the situation? Nothing. Everything's like, okay, cool. Let's go forward without you know, lashing out and making a wrong decision. So thank you for that advice. It really works.
Okay.
It's really something that anybody can apply.
Yeah.
Technical question.
Okay.
If you could be a fly on the wall and there's a conversation happening and you could be right here just listening and watching, who's in the room and what are they talking about? I would love to know the answer to this question.
A fly in the wall.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd love to learn, find out what Action SA is planning.
Okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there are always challenges, like I said, in coalition government. And what I find easy in council is dealing with the people sitting in front of me, because you know what to expect from the opposition. But what's very, very difficult is people sitting behind you and you don't know when the next attack is coming.
And where?
Yeah, yeah. And how you have to respond. And it's very, very difficult. So for me, that's the hardest part of being mayor, when you get attacked by your own partners.
Yeah.
That's very, very difficult.
And what's the part of your job that you enjoy the most? What brings you the most pleasure?
When I see service delivery taking place,
When there's actual
when
change.
things get done, yeah. Yeah, when electricity has been restored within what we call standard SLIs, with the agreed periods that service delivery has to take place. That I find pleasing, but it's problematic when we don't adhere to required standards, when there's no service delivery taking place. It's very difficult.
Yeah. And as you just explained, when you are facing the opposition or the coalition parties, it's one thing, but when they are behind you, it's so technical and so difficult.
Yeah.
And you can't plot your next move, because I think that way you are more a reactive person rather than a proactive person. We're going to take this approach. However, we need to think about what's going to be the outcome of this meeting before. It's so technical, sir.
Yes, yes.
That's why, you know, only a few people have the, I think, the moral authority and the patience to be able to do what you do. So thank you for doing such a good job, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know during your term it's not possible, because, as you explained, your diary is booked back to back to back to back to back, and you have to show up to different circumstances all the time. But if you could go back before you became mayor, what is a normal day that you had a day off for you? How does that look? I'm always intrigued. Are you hanging out watching a movie? Are you reading? Are you doing research? Are you in your library? What is a normal day for you where you've got nothing big happening tomorrow and it's just you time? How does that look to you?
Yeah, well, before I would make time to hang out with friends.
Okay.
Is
that a thing of the past now, sir?
Well, mostly, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I try and find time to read. I watch a bit of TV, but mostly news. I'm a junkie, a news junkie, so to speak. I like current affairs. I like documentaries on various issues. I like history. I spend a lot of time on history as well. So yeah, so my life has changed. You don't have the freedom to take time off, so to speak, because being mayor is a 24/7 job.
Yes.
You know, unfortunately, things don't normally break down during working hours. Things break after hours. After hours or over weekends. That is when things break. Yeah.
And I mean, it's so difficult and technical. This morning, I had a conversation with one of our senior managers, and she said, "You know what?" I'm bouncing with her. I said, "What do you think is the most difficult part of the mayor's job?" So she said, "Let me think about it." About 10 minutes later, she says, "You know what I think is the most difficult part?" I said, "Tell me." She said, "You know, in the middle of the night, somebody drives into a lamp pole, and now that lamp pole fell on the street and it no longer works, which affects the electricity in that street. It's the mayor's fault." And I said to her, "You know, like you just said, things don't happen during working hours. They happen, you know, after working hours, and everything is your fault, good or bad. Unfortunately, it's the position."
Yeah, it's amazing. We've got 27,000 employees. We've got thousands of managers. But whatever happens, it's the mayor's fault. Everything is the mayor's fault.
Luckily, I must commend you on that as well. Whenever good things happen, it's also your fault, sir. So congratulations on that, sir.
Good things never get reported, unfortunately.
But
and that's why I made a joke on a program. I say, even if the King of England does something wrong, it's the mayor's fault.
I'm glad we can have a laugh about it, but it's so true, sir. It's so true. I want to get into cars.
Okay.
What was your first car that you ever owned?
Well, the first car, I actually, all I can remember, it was a white car. I completely, Sierra.
A Ford Sierra.
Ford Sierra.
Okay.
Yeah, Ford
Good.
Sierra.
That was the first car.
Yeah, first car. And the second one was, I like to brag about a German model.
Yes.
Right? But my German model is a 91 VW Fox 1800.
Ooh, the
Yeah.
Tripper. The
No,
VW,
no,
not a Tripper.
That's a
Okay.
1400.
Okay.
Mine is an 1800 Sport.
Nice.
So I still have the car.
Really?
Yeah.
That car's valuable. You need to keep
Yes,
it and take care of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's now appreciating in value.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that is.
because now it's what they call a vintage model.
Yes, sir. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Wow, that's a cool car, sir. What
Yes.
color?
White.
Whitey
Yeah.
color. Nice.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you were to close your eyes and you were to say, listen, you know, the doors, the amount of doors, the height, it doesn't matter. What is the mayor's dream car? If you were to close your eyes and say, you know, this, I can see myself cruising in this. What is your dream car? If budget was no option and you just, this is me.
Well, I like SUVs.
Okay, so it's an SUV.
Well, I'm going to sound ridiculous. Originally, my dream car was a Lamborghini Urus.
Oof.
Right?
That's so nice.
Until I saw the Ferrari Purosangue.
That is, I can only imagine what it looks like in real life.
Yes.
Off of what I've seen, I'm in love as well. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, so I currently have an SUV, but it's not quite at that level. So.
But it's still very nice, though. We had an off-camera discussion.
Yeah.
Love the car.
Yes.
Beautiful. So you love movies, documentaries, and you know you didn't get the LLB because you don't love reading. There's a love for reading there. So I want to ask you maybe, you know, 1 or 2 favorite movies or documentaries, and maybe 1 or 2 of your favorite books.
Look, documentaries, I do a lot of military history. Like recently I just looked at military history again, especially the Second World War, all the battles and the decisions. It's about decisions that commanders have taken and often how wrong they've been. Like, for example, the Market Garden operation that took place where they landed in Holland, and it was far-fetched when they call it a bridge too far.
Yes.
The movie came out of that as well.
Yes, that's
but
right.
It was formerly known as Operation Market Garden. The British general that planned the attack, I mean, there were a lot of mistakes made, and you can use military strategy in business as well.
Absolutely agree.
He was poorly informed. The troops were not properly equipped. He overestimated the strength of the enemy forces. He overestimated, so he was too cautious in his approach. So there's a lot of that you can learn out of military strategy that you can apply to business. So yeah, I mean, for me, I love reading about economics. I love reading economic articles. I didn't do too badly when I studied economics as well. So yeah, I read them a lot on current affairs rather than reading fictional novels. I prefer reading articles and consume a lot of that information.
Beautiful, sir. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. So, you know, sometimes, especially business people and colleagues, they always say, have a look at the success of this company. These are the 5 things they did. Have a look at the success of this company. And recently, we run a book club in our company.
Yeah.
So initially, how it started was, it was semi-enforced. You guys, whoa.
Yeah.
Until the company fell in love with the reading culture. Now we do a book a month. We all write a report, 1-pager, 3 key takeaways,
Yeah.
and then we choose the best ones, and then, you know, an experience is one every time. But A book that we recently did is called How the Mighty Fall, and it speaks on exactly what you said.
Yeah.
There are certain things that you can learn from successes, yes. Apple did product development well. They knew who they were, and they went and did their thing, and they were very successful. But most of the golden nuggets, I believe, are in the mistakes that the companies make, because you can learn from both and avoid those landmines and those GPS coordinates. So I agree with you on that. I really do. Sir, my humblest thank you to you, and agreeing to share your time with us, and agreeing to dive into your past, and tell us how you grew up, how you came about to occupy this position. You have definitely, sir, left me and the entire team and everybody that's going to watch this interview better than you found us. Thank you very much for sharing your time, and good luck. And we are on the sideline cheering for you, wearing your name on the back of our shirt. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing. We really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been a great chat.
Thank you, sir.